for the introduction. Am I standing close enough to the microphone? Everybody can hear me okay? Marvelous. So as a general rule, I try to convince groups not to read the full bio from the website, especially when my colleagues are with me, because they do exactly what they just did for the last 5 minutes. In fact, Samantha and her cousin Skyr sat there and mocked me the whole time. Man, you're pompous. What did you do that? You were only there for 5 days. What's that in there for? So, you know, humility would be one of those things that I add to the list that you put together in terms of don't take yourself too seriously. Happy to be here today. Appreciate the invitation. I am a new Northerner. I've been in Thunder Bay 3.5 years. Going to take a little bit of time to talk about Northern Policy Institute. We are the North Regional Think Tank. We have offices in Thunder Bay, Sudbury, Kenora, and Sault Ste. Marie. Those are our permanent offices, so to speak. We also set up 5 satellite offices during the summer for summer placements. So if any of you have friends, relatives, children, cousins, spouses, partners who are looking to come home for the summer and are interested in doing policy work, we have 10 summer placements. They last 4 months long. They're in the areas of communications, public relations, public policy, research and data. 2 of them potentially will be in Hearst. I'll find that out tomorrow, I guess. 2 others may well be at Nipissing First Nation. We'll find that out on Friday. We've got 2 spots for sure in Sault Ste. Marie and Kenora, but the other 2 are still up in the air. We're also looking for partner hosts organizations. So if you've got a couple extra desks and are trying to figure out how to fill them, by all means, have a chat with myself or one of my colleagues. We are always looking for community partners for an opportunity to put some bright minds to work on the issues in your community. So that's an opportunity for a mini hub, I guess, would be a way to connect that, connect the dots in terms of the presentation today. 780,000 bosses. So let's count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. 100, 120, 140, 150 odd are in this room today. 780,000 is the population of Northern Ontario. We work for everybody who lives here. And so I do indeed have 780,000 bosses. When I go get a cup of coffee at a local Tim's, yes, I go to Tim's. My colleagues prefer Starbucks, but that's their problem. When I go to Tim's, I'm getting a coffee from one of my bosses. When I take a cab, I'm getting a ride from one of my bosses. When I stay at Nicole's wonderful facilities, I'm getting a room from one of my bosses. So that's how it works. We set our research agenda based on the advice and direction we hear from you. We come to events like this to talk about the lessons that the evidence tells us based on advice and direction and requests from people like you. So that's how the 780,000 bosses fit in. Quick observation around one of the things that NPI is tasked to do. We're tasked to do what's called capacity building. Our job isn't only to look at the data and analysis and the evidence globally about how to make communities in Northern Ontario better. It's also about building the capacity to put that evidence to work. When token Torontonians were mentioned, I laughed at one of my colleagues who's sitting here beside the camera. That's Emma Helfand-Green. She's our policy analyst. She literally just moved from Thunder Bay to Sudbury, but she's our token Torontonian. She's actually from the GTA. We don't hold that against her too much. 5, 6 times a day, maybe? Yeah, okay. But we also reach farther afield than that. So my other colleague is Amandine Martel, who's sitting here at the wave, Amandine, so there you go. Amandine came all the way from Paris to help us figure out what the numbers in Northern Ontario say. So there you go. Well, actually, her parents moved to Quebec, and she decided that it was much more fun being here in Northern Ontario, right? Okay. So there we have it. That's enough indirect wasting of time. Let's move on to the slides that I put together for you, if I can convince my phone to work. Of course, I can't see the slides, so I'm hoping that when we get to the right ones, we'll be on the correct agenda. I've subtitled my talk, A Made for North Solution, Service Hubs. The simple fact is that we live too far apart and there's too few of us to do everything that needs to be done in a modern community, so we already do hubs. We do them quite well, thank you very much. We've done them pretty much since the first people moved into these communities. And so that's several thousand years worth of hub experience. And so we're pretty good at it, but we can always get better, right? And that's why we're here today to share some potential ideas. In the context of Northern policy, how I think we came to the attention of the organizers, we put out a series of 11 papers looking at demographic trends, human capital in all 11 census districts in Northern Ontario. The one here is published. It looked at Cochrane, and we've done one for Timiskaming district as well. And it tells us the things that I think all of us probably already know. It's about lower than average education levels, it's about a decline in the overall population, but it also tells us some of the good news, right? The growing agricultural sector, the history of employment resilience. We know how to create and find new opportunities for ourselves when the opportunities that were yesterday's opportunities move on. And we also know about strong immigration labor market. We have here in the Northeast and here in this region in particular, very high success rates for people who come, whether they're first-time immigrants, second-generation immigrants, secondary movement. We're very good at welcoming people, as we saw this morning. It's all about finding a way to work together to make lives better, and I think that that pays off for the region. I'm going to start in terms of laying the context for your today's discussion with a slide that talks about comparative performance versus the Northwest. We do a lot of work on Northern Ontario, and so this is the good news for the Northeast. You actually stack up pretty well to your friends to the west. Educational attainment for Aboriginal population is much higher here in the Northeast and the Northwest. Average income is higher in the Northeast and the Northwest. Dependency on government transfers is lower. Participation rates are higher, unemployment rates are lower, particularly in the very rural and remote parts of the Northeast and the Northwest. That's good news, because getting jobs in those communities is pretty tough. There's a higher percentage of rural income earners in the Northeast and the Northwest, and there's greater economic activity in strongly rural areas in the Northeast and the Northwest. That means that you're doing quite well compared to some of the challenges that those in the Northwest face. And I would tell you that those are Ontario numbers, and compared to Northern Alberta, Northern Manitoba, Northern Saskatchewan, we stack up quite well. So you hear a lot in the media. I heard just before Christmas the Finance Minister of Ontario come up for a talk in Thunder Bay, and my community leaders stood there and talked about the horror stories and how bad things are and how we need help and we need it tomorrow. But the fact is there's a lot of good news and good things going on in our communities. And I don't think we spend near enough time talking about that. And I'm sure that the conversations you're going to have today are going to give you an opportunity to talk about some of the success stories. Let's convince my cam to go to the next. Here's some of the reasons why I think the results in the Northeast are different than those in the Northwest. And this matters for your discussions because it allows you, it means that you have a greater opportunity for some of the hub cooperation and collaboration here in the Northeast. One of the points is rural is less remote in the Northeast and the Northwest. This is a measure that StatsCan came up with. It's called Metropolitan Influence Zones. It's people who have regular connectivity to larger urban centers. So for example, if you live in a community of 500 and you work in a neighboring community of 1,500, you get a higher score on this. If you live in a community of 1,500 and you regularly shop and or secure entertainment from a community of 25,000 down the road, you'd have a higher score on this measure. As you can see, in rural communities in the Northeast, you have a stronger influence. It means that you have greater connectivity between your communities in this region than is the case in the Northwest. That matters when you're looking for hub partners. It matters when you're talking about the clients that you're trying to service. It matters when you start to set your strategic vision and your vision for your community, your region, and your district, because that means you've got a lot of other resources to draw on, a lot more friends to access, and a lot more opportunities for collaboration and cooperation. This slide here, I got a message, it was from you, Tiffany, wasn't it? Who asked, what's your messaging around this slide? So this is the road grid in the Northeast and Northwest, or I'm hoping you're looking at a map that has little red spikes. So basically, this is an interesting exercise. If I expanded this map to the country as a whole, if I expanded it to Canada, what you would see is in Quebec, roads go all the way up to Hudson's Bay, James Bay, all the way north. If you look in Manitoba, roads and infrastructure goes all the way north up into James Bay and into the Arctic connectivity and indeed into some of the lower territorial places. And then you would see a huge gap in the Ontario space. So west and east of us, you basically have road and grids that connect. In Ontario, that's not the case, and in particular, it's not the case in northwestern Ontario. The good news for the Northeast, and one of the reasons why I think you have stronger metropolitan influence zones, is because while your highways close frequently, because you've only got 2 lanes, you can turn around and go back and get to the place another way. The simple fact is if a highway closes when I'm in Sioux Lookout, I'm staying in Sioux Lookout, because that's the end of the road. There's no turning around. There's no taking an alternative route. There's no, oh, I'll take Highway 11 versus Highway 17 or 644 or whatever number you'd like to insert here. So while it may seem inconvenient when your highway's closed, the fact is you have 2 choices when the Northwest has 1. And so that matters. It matters in terms of your confidence about sharing, it matters about your confidence about moving around, and it allows you a greater level of flexibility. I'm not saying it's an ideal grid, but it is in fact a grid. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing. The other piece that we should talk about in terms of setting the tone and the context around your discussions about whether to collaborate, how to collaborate, and what kind of challenges and opportunities you're going to face to collaborate is what's called the demographic dependency ratio. This is a discussion about the fact that the working age population supports a population that doesn't work. Working age population being defined as 15 to 65, roughly. It means people like Lethia, for example, aren't going to work tomorrow to buy her food. Mom and Dad have to go to work to buy her food. Same thing goes when Dad gets a little old and can't build hubs anymore. Lethia's going to take care of him. And so she'll move into the denominator of that calculation, and he'll move into the numerator. The challenge we have is that, and this will come as no surprise to any of you, we are fewer, we are older, and our working age population is getting smaller every year. So that means things like the tax base and community capacity. So the number of people who have an income, have a house, are paying taxes on that, are paying taxes on their income is getting fewer every year. But it also means that your ability to hire people, your ability to find the skill sets you require is going to get more and more challenged every year. And what that means is, yes, that infamous phrase, doing more with less, is going to continue to be a real day-to-day challenge. And that's why hubs become even more important as we go forward. And let's not kid ourselves. As I said before, we've been doing hubs for a long time. It's just the flavor of the month in terms of labeling. So you could look in the public administration literature 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and we label something else. But the fact is, we all know how to do it, and some of us do it better than others. And the key thing is being willing to learn and share. Moving over to the demographic dependency ratio, this is projections for the districts as a whole. The good news for the North is some of our districts are actually stabilizing in population. That's primarily driven by 2 things, growth in the Indigenous population and spike in retention of youth. Yes, that's right, you heard me correctly. I said spike in the retention of youth, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second or two. The simple fact is that here in the Northeast, and particularly in the Timiskaming and Cochrane districts, that's not the case. You continue to have a population decline, and you've got to respond. Or you're going to have to recognize that even if you can have the most ideal hub partnerships, you're still going to see a decline in overall services. Because the simple fact is, Danny's going to retire at some point, Tiffany's going to retire at some point, and they may or may not be replaced. So this slide talks about the population demographics. It talks about the age cohorts. Basically, this is a numerical presentation of what I just told you. The fact is that we don't have a balanced distribution across the age demographics, and the younger kids, there aren't enough of them to replace those of us in the workforce today. Remember how I told you that there's good news? So here's some good news. The increased retention of youth. This is, if I can convince it to show me the title. Okay. I'm assuming you have a graph in front of you that says something along the lines of youth immigration by district, and you'll see a circle around Timiskaming and Cochrane. Is that correct? Marvelous. Look at the numbers. They are flat. They're not particularly rising, but they've stabilized. That means the kids are starting to stay, particularly the kids in the 0 to 19 and 20 to 34 year age groups. That means 2 things. One, families are either having kids or they're coming to town with kids in tow. That's good news. let's not get too excited. This number translates, for example, in Sudbury, it was a loss of 137 people last year, and or the second last year before this data was collected, I think it's 2014. So in 2013, they would have lost 130. In 2014, they got 3. So it's stabilization, it's not a spike or the miracle cure, it just means that we're going finally in the right direction, or at least not in the wrong direction anymore. And the important thing to recognize is that's after 5 or 6 years of significant losses. So we reduced the losses every year, and we're now in the positive stages. Why is that happening? This is the next graph. This is employment rate for youth in those 2 categories. The red circle indicates that in the Northwest and the Northeast, the employment rate for youth is higher than the Canadian and the provincial average. I can tell you that unemployment is the same situation and participation is the same situation. So the simple fact is, and I love to say this over and over as many times as I can, if you are a young person in Ontario, you have a better chance of getting a job if you stay in Northern Ontario than if you move to London or Toronto or Hamilton. I can't say that enough because that's not the impression that we have reading the newspaper. That's not the impression we have watching the television news. But that's what the data tells us. For the last 15 years, if you were a young person looking for a job, this is where you should have been. There's reasons for that, and we'll talk about that without the microphone on because they're not necessarily as enthusiastic as I make it out to be, but the point is it still translates into if Amandine wants a job, she comes here. If Emma wants a job, she comes here. If our kids who've gone south to study want a job, they come home. Let's talk about long-term potential, and the reason I want to talk about that is, again, it comes back to the point I was highlighting around the need for hubs and the fact that not only are you going to have less money to pay for services, you're also going to have less people to do it. This is data from the Far Northeast Training Board. It talks about potential exits. So this is what's called demand, labor replacement demand. So these are people who we know are coming close to the retirement age. We can predict because we know how old they are now. We know what the retirement age is in their categories, so we can estimate when they're going to be leaving. What you see is business, finance, administration, management, education, law, social, community, and government services. So that's all of us for the most part. It's police officers, lawyers, volunteers, planners. It's for the most part our admin people. We're going to be leaving in large numbers, and that means that in your region in particular, you're going to need somewhere close to, let's put the numbers together, 4, 3, and 2, that's 9,000 odd people in the next 20 years. Indeed, in the next 15. And it's not just your professional staff. We're talking about admin assistants, we're talking about janitors, caretakers, we're talking about light-duty cleaners. The people who make this space available for us. It's going to be harder and harder to find the person to unlock the door, shovel the snow, set up the table, and make sure the coffee's here. So that has challenges for you in terms of delivery. How am I doing for time? Am I misbehaving egregiously? That's the only time I'm going to ask. I'm not going to look over there ever again. So you're just going to have to suffer while I get through the rest of my slides. So I've set the context. The context is that we have a population that's stabilizing in the youth cohorts and declining everywhere else. We've got challenges around where the money comes from. We've got challenges around how we're going to find people to deliver the services. And we know that people are going to continue to demand greater and greater services, particularly end-of-life care, services for people who are aging, people who trip over electrical cords, for example, need a little extra help. Those kind of things tend to require some resources.
I've got your number.
So let's talk a little bit about community hubs, and I'll talk about it in the context of my personal experience. So I haven't drawn from literature on this particular subject. I haven't pulled together the studies around what the models are. If you want that literature, by all means, it's readily available. But these are some of the thoughts that I've had in the 25 odd years that I've been wandering around the public policy space. Co-location saves costs for sure. Co-location is wonderful, means that you get to share your power bill and those kind of things, but that's not what hubs are really all about. They may improve access, hubs may improve access, but it depends on who and where the client is. If you put your hubs in New Liskeard and your clients are in Cobalt, then you've got a little bit of a challenge, particularly if they don't have a car. If you put all of your services in Timmins and all of your clients are in the Timiskaming Shores region, you're going to have a problem because last I checked there wasn't very particularly strong and robust bus service back and forth. You can get a bus. You can't get a bus in the Northwest, but you can get a bus here. I'm not entirely sure what the schedule looks like. It's probably like 2 in the morning. But you know, that's okay. Just have a cup of coffee.